Well, that is a fitting end to what was a very, very frustrating week of baseball for the Seattle Mariners. What is up? What is going on, everybody? Welcome back and welcome into the Seattle Mariners post-game recap. Mariners dropped this one 6-4 to the Marlins. They lose the series 2-1. They fall to 45-35 on the year. They are 6.5 up on Texas in the AL West, 6 games up on Houston. Before I dive into it, as always, like and subscribe. 2 free, easy ways to help support the channel. I'm just a couple subs away from 3,700. And please comment your thoughts on the game down below. Truly, truly appreciate all the support, as always. Really, really frustrating weekend series for the Mariners. And after bouncing back yesterday after a tough loss on Friday, really felt confident they were going to get that series win today. But, unfortunately, Bryce Miller not sharp at all. Offense shows some signs of life, but still kind of missing that one big hit there to really break the game open or to, tie it up and get back into it. All in all, it results in a very frustrating series loss to a team that, quite frankly, you should be beating. And he caught a little bit of a break this week, and the Marlins had to scratch both starters Saturday and Sunday. I guess to the Mariners' credit, they did get it done yesterday against a spot starter, but they can't get it done today. Put a little bit of that more on Bryce Miller than the offense. But still, we're just talking about the team as a whole. That's frustrating to not come away and get that win. And then with losing today, it kind of makes me pull up Friday back up and how frustrating that loss was on Friday. You win yesterday, if you win today, kind of willing to throw it out a little bit. You don't want to throw out any game. They're all frustrating. You need them all. You're going to be in a tight race here. Every game matters and is magnified a little bit. But, you win some in a row, it's easier to kind of get over that. Just like this. If the Mariners can go to Tampa, win 2 out of 3 or sweep, I'll forget the Miami series a little bit quicker. And the Mariners have done a nice job of not letting losses really pile up this year. They've avoided sweeps. They've avoided long losing streaks, and that's helped for sure. So, go to Tampa, get a win. It'll take some of the pain away from this series. But until that happens, this is what we have to go on right now. And this was an extremely, extremely frustrating weekend. And then to just top it all off, Texas sweeps Kansas City and Houston sweeps Baltimore. But now listen, you can't control what Texas and Houston do. It's not the Mariners' fault that Baltimore got swept by Houston or that Kansas City got swept by Texas. Nothing you can do about that. But it just adds on to the frustration of this series. Mariners had a 10-game lead when we all woke up Wednesday morning, and now it's at 6. And I talked about it in that recap on Tuesday that one of the nice things about a 10-game lead, outside of it being a 10-game lead, being the nicest thing, is it allows you to have a week or two where you're not at your best and you can still probably hold a fairly substantial lead in the division. Well, truth of the matter is I was hoping that would be more maybe August, September, not happen one day after I made that comment. But the point does stand. The Mariners do still hold a 6-game lead in the division, which is pretty substantial. And if you told us all in March, then June 23rd, the Mariners would be 6 games up in the AL West, I don't think a single one of us wouldn't have signed up for that. But again, I think the frustration for most fans is how it's happened. They were 10 games up 4 days ago. Now they're at 6. I don't think you can blow a 10-game lead in 10 days. We'll see if the Mariners decide to put us to the test on that one. Hopefully not. I think they'll hold it a little bit longer than that. But still frustrating, right? And this team just doesn't have the track record that we trust. They've certainly played better baseball, 2021, 22, 23, and this year than we've seen in past years from the team. But it's not like the Mariners are the 4-time defending AL West champs with a World Series appearance and a couple ALCS wins or something like that, where we can go with confidence. Hey, we've seen this team we've seen them here before. They'll bounce back and get it done. I always use the Seahawks during their Super Bowl years as an example because they got off to and Mariners actually aren't off to a tough start. They're playing decent ball, pretty solid ball overall. But, there's more faith. The Seahawks in 2012, 13, 14, 15, 16 had that track record. They earned our trust a little bit. The Mariners are still working on that, and I'm not trying to sit here telling them like, oh, they have to earn my trust, that they got to go win games and focus on what they need to do. But I think as a fan base, that's where some of the worry comes in as well. We just aren't used to seeing this team in first place. It's new to us. And now we see in 4 games, they have a 10-game lead go down to 6. It's frustrating. But 6 is still a fairly substantial lead. But you got to be careful. Houston's playing Colorado next. That could easily be 3-4 wins right there. And Tampa has always been a house of horrors for the Mariners. You've got to be very careful. This lead could get down to 2-3, pretty quickly. And then it's game on for the season. So I didn't expect the Mariners to win division by 10 games. I still don't, but I didn't expect them to give that all back necessarily in the next week and a half. So, we'll see how it plays out. Baseball's weird, right? I bet you the Astros went into this weekend going, great, Seattle gets to play Miami, and we've got to play Baltimore. There's no way we're gaining ground here. And they gained 2 games. So, who knows what happens. Colorado sneaks one in against Houston. You beat Tampa. Boom, it's back to 7. And we're feeling good again. So it is a little bit of the roller coaster of baseball. As frustrating as this series was and this game was today, guys, it will be a roller coaster all year. There's going to be stretches where we go, this team is unbeatable. I believe in them to win a World Series. Then there's going to be series like this where you wonder how they aren't going to blow this division lead in a week and a half. It's going to be an up and down, back and forth. And baseball truly is the ultimate marathon. And losing to Miami doesn't mean, because I know some people kind of go, well, if they can't beat Miami, they're not going to beat Tampa. Baseball just doesn't work like that. I mean, we've seen this team get swept by bad teams. They beat Atlanta in a series. So you never know what's going to happen next. But again, like we've talked about in all these losses, you do see some of the microcosms of where the Mariners are struggling, all put into one game essentially, and where they need to upgrade. So, there's moves to be made. I can say it after every game. I don't want to get into, too much here with it because I'm going to have a video coming up hopefully this week with some trade ideas and stuff like that. But they've got to make some additions. But also, the current team's got to play better. Bryce Miller's going to be in your rotation. Bryce Miller's got to be better. What I talk about on Friday, like JP, Julio, Cal, whoever else was up in those tight situations. Like those guys aren't going anywhere when you make roster moves or when you make a trade. They're still going to be there. So they have to step up and be better. Bryce Miller's still going to be in your rotation. So acquiring, Luis Robert tomorrow and Brent Rooker and Pete Alonso, whoever else you want, they're not pitching. So those 6 runs are still going to happen. You know what I mean? So it's the current guys have got to be better too. And, avoid frustrating series like this. Bryce Miller was not sharp today. 4 innings, 6 hits, 6 runs, 6 earned, 1 walk, 3 strikeouts. Thought Bryce Miller really tried to go off speed in this game. In that first at bat, Jazz Chisholm doubled off him 110 off the bat, off a fastball. And Miami's a very aggressive swinging team. I think they're dead last in walks in baseball. So Bryce Miller tries to go breaking ball, a little bit more with the splitter, slider stuff, to, keep the Marlins, off their toes a little bit. And from sitting fastball, but he couldn't locate the breaking stuff. And unfortunately put him behind in the count. And then he had to go fastball, and the Marlins made him pay for it. Put up 4 runs in the first inning. And while, I don't want to give the offense a pass for today, I actually don't think the offense was terrible. They did score 4 runs, 9 runs yesterday. They were better the last 2 games. Getting down 4-0, then 6-0 after 3 innings, it puts you in a tough spot offensively because it's just natural to try and want to get all those runs back in 1 or 2 swings of the bat. And to the offense's credit, they did battle back in this game and made it close. Now, there were some failures there too, not letting them off the hook. But to me, this one's definitely much more on Bryce Miller's rough pitching performance. And we saw it last year. Bryce Miller's so fastball heavy, teams started to pick it up a little bit second half of the year, and he struggled. And, so far this year, been better, but you still see it. When that splitter is not there and he can't locate it at all, and he's got to go fastballs, he is susceptible to starts like this. Doesn't mean he can't get through starts. Doesn't mean he still can't be solid if that fastball is dialed in. He can still be really good, but you're just more susceptible to this. And truthfully, it's been a while now, and Bryce Miller just not looked all that great. I didn't think he was particularly sharp against Cleveland. Now, he did what he needed to do. The team had a big lead. He went out and, took care of it, gone through 5 2/3, and they got a win. So I'm not trying to say he was awful, but I didn't think he was particularly sharp in that game either. He had the game in Kansas City. They were up 8-0 that he let get away from him. He didn't blow the lead, but he let Kansas City get right back into that game. And I think he gave up 6 earned runs in that start as well. Not good. I know it started raining a little bit in the middle there, but got to find a way. He did pitch really well against Chicago. And I never take away when a starter pitches well, even if against a bad offense. That's what you're supposed to do, is dominate them. But when you sandwich that in between poor today in Cleveland and bad in Kansas City, it does make you wonder a little bit how much that was Bryce and how much that was just Chicago's offense being fairly, atrocious overall. And I think that might have been the game that Luis Robert didn't start as well. So I don't want to take it away. Miller did what he had to do in that game, and I will never complain about a dominant start, but does make you think a little bit. Listen, Bryce Miller's fine. I just think he's more of a back-end guy, more of a back-end rotation guy. And that's fine. Listen, Bryce Miller's your fifth starter. You're in really good shape. There's a lot of teams that Bryce Miller would be their top pitching prospect and their top guy going on the hill, and that's all we'd hear about. But with how good the Mariners staff is, he gets buried a little bit. He's fine. He's a good pitcher, but he's just not, I don't think he's an ace. And when you're not at that upper tier, as I drop my pen, you're susceptible to more starts like that. And while, I've said this thing about George Kirby a little bit, Miller doesn't quite have that pinpoint command that George Kirby has. George Kirby's command is so good that he can be a little bit more not dialed in his times as Bryce Miller. Bryce Miller's got good command. He throws strikes, but it's not elite. It's just, above average, essentially. Maybe a little bit more than above average. But anyways, bottom line, Bryce Miller just not good today. And that was really the main culprit in this game. The offense had some moments, but the main culprit to me was Bryce Miller. Bullpen did its job. Sauce with a nice inning. Thornton strikes out the side. Voth does walk a couple guys, but gets through it. And then Bauman with the shutout, 8th inning. So bullpen was solid. I don't think you'll need to make a roster move for tomorrow, but, did have to use a lot of guys today. So you do wonder, Thornton, Sauce, are they available tomorrow? I would think they are. I would think you're probably full go. I don't think anybody really threw more than like 15 pitches. Sauce threw 19, Thornton 12. Voth did throw 23. Voth could be down tomorrow, but I think for the most part, you should have everybody good to go. The offense today, Mariners score, they get 7 hits, 4 runs, 5 walks, strike out 8 times. Again, I feel like I'm beating a dead horse and I'm saying the same things over and over again. Not a terrible offensive day, but just no real big hit to really open this game up or to put one in the gap to tie it. Just getting base runners and then getting a couple runs here and there, but nothing really to, I don't know what it is I may be looking for, but and like in that 9th inning, Julio hit the ball pretty hard. It was a 650 expected batting average on that at bat in the 9th. So I don't want to harp on that one too much, but just looking for that ball in the gap to really get this offense going. They did great yesterday. And again, 7 hits, 5 walks, 12 base runners, 4 runs. And that's after being down 6-0 going into the top of the 4th. I don't think they were awful today by any means. And again, I will put this more on Bryce Miller, but you didn't do great against Kyle Tyler, who was making a spot start. He was in the Mariners AA last year. He's 27. About as generic as a spot starter as you can get. I mean, he wasn't great. 4 innings, 3 hits, 2 runs, 2 earned, 3 walks, 2 Ks. But that's kind of my point. Like, hey, you got some hits, you got some walks. That should be 4 or 5 runs. Like, someone put one in the gap. Someone put one over the fence. Knock these guys out. The Mariners will get these pitch counts up, put pressure on guys, but then they just let them off the hook a little bit. I think that's my frustration. And it's just even within the game, Dominic Canzone has a pretty good game. Singles, I know, is a little blooper, but it's a hit and a walk. But then in the most important at-bat he had all game in the 8th inning after Julio reaches on the strikeout, he fouls off a couple tough pitches, then he swings at one that was up here that he almost had to hack at it like this to even try and make contact. It was an awful at-bat. Canzone didn't have a bad game. Reached twice in 4 at-bats. That's a 500 OBP. If you did that, you'd be the best player of all time. But when they needed it, when they needed a big at-bat, he has a terrible one. And it's just, I'm not trying to pick on Canzone. He had a really nice series. It was just that moment kind of stood out to me. And that's kind of been the Mariners. Cal Raleigh does a great job in the 9th inning. A great walk against Tanner Scott. Fouled off some pitches and ends up getting on. But he fouled off a couple really hittable fastballs. He hit one down the line on a bit of a hanging slider that he's out in front of like that much. Walk is great. Nothing wrong with that. That's a good result. But man, he almost could have had a chance to put one in the gap and make that, 2nd and 3rd or score Garver with nobody out. Ryan Bliss, next guy up, gets a hittable pitch and flies out to center. Not even, to right field to advance the runners or a base hit ties it. Just not getting those little things with this offense. Julio hits it pretty hard tonight, but man, if you can, and I know it's easier said than done, but you elevate that just a little bit, that ball might be in the gap. Mariners might be up 7-6. And it's just little things that are hurting this offense. And it does feel like they're close, but it's kind of been this way all year. It's crazy we're at the halfway point, by the way, or tomorrow will be the halfway point, which just blows my mind. We'll get into the box score a little bit here. JP was 1 for 4 with a RBI single in the 7th and a walk. on base twice. But, again, JP's a good example. Rough at bat in the ninth inning, though. Now, Tanner Scott's really tough on lefties. I would give JP maybe a little bit of a pass in that at bat. But again, not a bad game at all from JP on base twice. But when they need him in the most, has his worst at bat. Rojas was 0 for 3. Dylan Moore 1 for 2. Did have a nice base hit in the ninth inning, extended it and gave Julio a shot. All you're looking for there. Julio 0 for 5. Yes, robbed a little bit in that last at bat, but what about the other 4 at bats? Every time it feels like we're so close to Julio breaking out and having that series. When I say that series, I mean that 3 home run series that we've seen from him, where it's like, how do you get this guy out? It just doesn't come. He'll have a game where you're like, okay, here it comes, and then boop, right back down, and it's just frustrating. Rough game for Julio. Canzone, 1 for, like you said, 1 for 3 with a single and a walk. I'm not picking on Canzone, but in the most important at-bat, had an awful at-bat. So that makes it frustrating. Ty France was 0 for 4. OPS down to 709. Drawing a lot of walks when he came back, but Ty has 1 hit since coming off the injured list. That could be injury-related, whatever. I don't know. It takes time to bounce back from things. But again, it's just the frustration of it all, right? Like, I'm giving Ty a little bit more of a pass. He's just come back from injury and swing bat really well before, but it's been, 6 games now, and Ty is yet to put a ball in the gap here. They could have used that tonight. Luke Raley, he gets a pass. 3 for 4, a couple RBIs. Nice game from Raley. Garver had a good game, 1 for 2 with 2 walks. But, Garver falls into that category too. He's fine today. Reaches base 3 times and has a nice hit in the ninth. But, we'll start to heat up, then drop back off. Today good, but I got to see more consistently from a lot of these guys. But a good game from Garver. Oh, Mitch Haniger. People ask me I think someone asked me in the comments last night, what's the roster move when Polanco comes back? Sounds like Polanco might be back in Tampa. DFA Mitch Haniger is honestly, that's probably the right move. I don't think they'll do it. I know how much they value Mitch in the locker room. Make up an injury, put him on the IL. There's got to be something bugging him. There always is. These guys are never 100% healthy, because that's probably the right move to make. If you're trying to put the best roster out there, I just don't think Mitch Haniger is one of your 26 best right now. It has just been so rough. And again, I will go back to he's just not giving you anything. He's not playing very good defense. I don't know how bad it is, but bottom line is it's certainly not well above average. He's not much of a base runner, and he's not hitting. You can say, well, Jay, Mitch Garver's been bad. Well, at least Mitch Garver's catching a little bit, so that gives you some value, and Garver's been a better hitter than Haniger. Like Ty France, yes, I know Ty has struggled too, but up until the injury, Ty was pretty locked in. I'm willing to give Ty, a few weeks here, a month, before I start to really harp back on him coming back from that heel injury. Mitch is just not giving anything. And I get there's not a lot of better options. I know I joked that Victor Robles, I didn't joke, actually. He is more valuable right now and playing better, but I'm probably not making Victor Robles an everyday outfielder. It's a spot you're probably going to have to acquire somebody, so I get it. But man, I mean, if today, did Haniger DH? Give those at-bats to Tyler Locklear. And if Tyler Locklear is not going to play, send him down. I know they were expecting to face a lot of lefties in this series, and the Marlins ended up having to scratch some guys, forced them to go more left-handed hitting lineup. I get that. I do. I'm not mad at them for not having played Locklear a ton, but there's no point in having him on the roster if he's not going to play. He needs to be getting everyday at-bats. He's a legitimate prospect. He can't just be sitting away at your bench. Or you got to win a game like this. I'm sorry. He should be DHing over Mitch Haniger. I'd rather see Locklear go 0 for 3 than Mitch Haniger right now. I love Mitch Haniger. I'm not trying to pick on him every game. But the Mariners, right? What were they? They were this close to making that comeback today. Not putting on Mitch Haniger. It wasn't necessarily his fault. But when you're that close, right? That's what we kind of think of the team. Well, when you have a player that's that bad, that little margin, that matters. It matters. All those at-bats matter. So do I think Locklear is the answer there? Maybe not, but I'd feel more excited at least seeing Tyler Locklear get those at-bats. Cal pinched hit, was 0 for 1 with a walk, and Ryan Bliss was 0 for 3 with an RBI ground out. Be very curious what the roster move is when Jorge Polanco comes back. I talked a little bit yesterday. I don't know how they want to play this. You could send Locklear down, but then, I guess Bliss could kind of be utility infielder, and Dylan Moore could take some of Mitch Haniger's at-bats in the outfield. They could do something like that, move Bliss around the diamond. Problem is Bliss's arm is just not very strong, so it's hard to play him at third or shortstop, essentially. So I don't know how they're going to play this out. We'll see what they end up doing. I wouldn't be shocked if there is some like IL stint for Mitch Haniger where they put him on with like something and bring Polanco back. Dylan Moore can kind of take that outfield role. Then you get to keep Bliss and Locklear. Play him a little bit. If you're going to keep Locklear, you got to play him. But we'll see if that's how they end up doing it. Super frustrating series. I know I didn't yell too much. Here's the guys. This game was over at 4-0. It felt like 6-0. That was almost 4 hours ago. So my anger for this game has subsided, truthfully. I'm not as up in arms about it. Move on, get the W tomorrow, hopefully. But a very frustrating series. Very, very frustrating. And for fans that have doubts about this team, which, I think we all have doubts. Some are maybe more optimistic that they'll overcome the doubts than others. But, I get it. I get why people would, be frustrated and have doubts about this team because they have moments like this, and every team does. But the Mariners seem to have it more, and they just don't seem to have enough convincing wins around it. Like, find a way to win that game Friday, and today is not as brutal. It's just stuff like that really makes it frustrating for this team. And they're not pitching well on the road. They're not playing well on the road. Find a way to turn around. Go to Tampa, get a W. That's all I've got. Like, comment, subscribe. Hopefully Mariners bounce back tomorrow, get a win. Much more excited to talk about wins. Think about becoming a channel member. I will have a live stream this week. I'm thinking it might be Friday because they come back home from Minnesota. It's easier for me to do the night game, so I'll try to do something during the week, though, if I can. So think about becoming a channel member, and there'll be a contest giveaway as well. Love you all. Take care. Enjoy the rest of your weekend. And as always, go Mariners. Peace.